You ever witness someone get humiliated in front of a whole plane, only for karma to strike back harder than anyone expected? That's exactly what happened on Flight 742 from New York to Los Angeles. A woman named Vanessa Jordan boarded the plane quietly, wearing a simple black hoodie, jeans, and white sneakers. Her hair was tied back, and she carried just one small leather handbag and a laptop case. Nothing about her screamed important. In fact, she looked like just another tired traveler on a weekday flight. But what no one knew was that Vanessa owned Skyline Airlines, the very company that operated that plane. Vanessa had a unique habit. Once every few months, she would fly anonymously to experience what her customers went through. No assistance, no VIP service, just a regular seat, surrounded by everyday passengers. She believed that the best way to understand people was to walk in their shoes. But the moment she stepped into the cabin, she noticed something strange. One of the flight attendants, a woman named Melissa, gave her a look, one of those quick up-and-down glances that carried silent judgment. Vanessa brushed it off, thinking maybe Melissa was just having a long day. As she lifted her small suitcase toward the overhead bin, Melissa suddenly stepped forward and said sharply, "Ma'am, that bin is for priority passengers only. Economy storage is back there." Her tone was loud enough for several passengers to turn their heads. Vanessa froze for a moment, then smiled politely. "Oh, I didn't realize. My apologies." But Melissa wasn't done. "Next time, please read the signs. We can't have people crowding the front," she added, voice dripping with irritation. A man in a business suit behind Vanessa whispered, "Wow, that was unnecessary." Vanessa gave a soft nod and quietly moved toward the back, placing her bag in another compartment. But her heart sank, not because she cared about the bag or the seat, but because she had just witnessed the kind of arrogance she hoped didn't exist among her employees. She sat down by the window, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "All right, Melissa, let's see how deep this goes." 15 minutes into the flight, the seatbelt sign turned off, and Melissa began walking down the aisle with her beverage cart. Her smile suddenly appeared, but only when she approached passengers who looked important. Business travelers, well-dressed tourists, and couples in suits all received warm greetings. "Coffee, sir? Orange juice? Water?" she said sweetly to a man wearing a Rolex. But when she reached the next few rows, people dressed casually, mostly Black and Hispanic passengers. Her tone flattened. Her smile disappeared. "Drink?" she asked coldly, as if she was doing them a favor. When Melissa stopped at Vanessa's row, the difference was clear as day. Vanessa smiled politely. "Hi, could I please get some water?" Melissa didn't even look her in the eye. She handed over a cup so quickly that the water splashed over the rim, spilling onto Vanessa's sleeve. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Melissa said mockingly, smirking just enough to make her intention clear. "You should really be careful next time." Vanessa looked at her for a moment, then said quietly, "Do you treat all your passengers this way, or just the ones who look like me?" The nearby passengers went silent. A woman 2 seats over glanced up from her magazine, clearly uncomfortable. Melissa crossed her arms. "Excuse me? Don't pull the race card on me. I'm just doing my job." Vanessa's voice stayed calm. "Doing your job doesn't include humiliating paying passengers." Melissa scoffed. "If you have a problem, you can file a complaint after the flight." Vanessa nodded slowly. "Oh, I will." She leaned back in her seat, wiping the spilled water from her sleeve. Her jaw tightened. Inside, she wasn't angry for herself. She was angry for every passenger who had ever been dismissed, ignored, or talked down to because someone thought they didn't belong. The rest of the flight crew seemed oblivious. One attendant in the back looked uneasy, but no one said a word. The silence made the insult sting even more. Vanessa decided right then, this flight would not end like any other. 2 hours later, turbulence hit, the kind that shakes drinks off trays and makes hearts skip beats. The lights flickered as the plane trembled. Passengers gasped, clutching armrests. Melissa's tone changed again, but not in a good way. She started yelling, "Everyone sit down. Seatbelts on now. Didn't you hear the captain?" Her voice was filled with panic instead of guidance. An elderly man in row 22 fumbled with his seatbelt, dropping his small bag onto the floor. Instead of helping him, Melissa barked, "Sir, you're delaying everyone. Just sit down." That was it for Vanessa. She unbuckled her belt, stood up calmly despite the shaking plane, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Ma'am, you're supposed to make passengers feel safe, not scared." Melissa spun around. "Sit down, lady. You don't run this plane." Vanessa stared at her evenly. "Actually, you might want to be careful with that statement." "Yeah? And who are you supposed to be, the Queen of England?" Melissa shot back, hands on hips. A few passengers whispered, "Oh no, she messed with the wrong woman." Vanessa didn't raise her voice. She just said softly, "You'll find out soon enough." The turbulence calmed down minutes later, but the atmosphere stayed tense. The crew whispered among themselves. Melissa avoided Vanessa's row completely for the rest of the flight. Vanessa leaned back, expression unreadable. In her mind, she was already making decisions, not out of anger, but out of responsibility. If this was how her staff behaved when they thought no one important was watching, then something in her company needed serious change. When the plane landed at LAX, passengers stood, stretched, and grabbed their luggage. Vanessa stayed seated, waiting for the crowd to clear. Melissa approached her with an annoyed sigh. "Ma'am, you need to exit the aircraft. We have another flight to prep." Vanessa smiled faintly. "Of course. Just one moment." She reached in her purse and pulled out a sleek black ID badge with gold letters that gleamed under the cabin lights. V. Jordan, owner and CEO, Skyline Airlines. Melissa froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The captain, now standing near the cockpit door, caught sight of the badge and immediately stepped forward. "Ms. Jordan? I had no idea you were on this flight." Vanessa stood slowly. "I know. That's the point." The cabin fell silent. Even the passengers who hadn't disembarked yet stopped in their tracks. "I've been flying anonymously for months," Vanessa said, "to see how our employees treat passengers when they think no one's watching. I've seen great service, kindness, professionalism, but today," she looked directly at Melissa, "what I saw was disappointing." Melissa's voice shook. "Ma'am, I didn't mean it was just—" "No," Vanessa interrupted gently. "You meant it, and that's why it hurts." She turned to the captain. "I'll be expecting a full crew report by morning, and I want to speak with HR before the next flight departs." Melissa's eyes welled up. "Please, Ms. Jordan, I can explain." Vanessa looked at her, expression soft but firm. "I don't need explanations. I need accountability." Then she walked off the plane, leaving a stunned silence behind. Within 48 hours, the company launched an internal investigation. It turned out that Vanessa wasn't the only passenger Melissa had disrespected. There were several prior complaints about her behavior, ignored or brushed aside. Melissa and 2 other crew members were terminated. The head of HR personally apologized to Vanessa for the oversight. But Vanessa didn't just fire people and move on. She wanted lasting change. She introduced mandatory empathy and inclusion training across the entire airline. Every employee, from pilots to ground crew, had to attend. The message was clear: we don't just fly people, we serve them. Equally, weeks later, a viral video surfaced from another Skyline flight. A flight attendant was seen kneeling beside an anxious elderly passenger, holding his hand through turbulence. When asked about the new training, the attendant smiled and said, "Our owner taught us something powerful. Kindness isn't optional. It's part of our uniform now." Vanessa saw the clip late one evening in her office. She smiled quietly and whispered, "That's the airline I built." A few days later, she received an email from Melissa. It wasn't defensive, it was apologetic. Melissa admitted her behavior, said she'd taken time to reflect, and thanked Vanessa for the lesson she didn't realize she needed. Vanessa wrote back one line: "I forgive you. Just remember, your words can lift people up or tear them down. Choose wisely, because at the end of the day, status doesn't define who you are, character does. And sometimes, the person you look down on might just be the one who built the plane you're flying on."